I watched in horror as my sister Ashley slammed my gleaming new BMW into a concrete pillar in the mall parking garage. The sound of metal crunching and glass shattering echoed through the structure. 2 months of overtime shifts to afford my dream car, destroyed in seconds. When she stepped out laughing with her friends, I felt my blood turn to ice. The worst part? This wasn't the first time my family had taken something precious from me without permission, but it would definitely be the last. The morning I drove my brand new BMW 3 Series off the lot was the proudest day of my life. I, Meagan Parker, 28 years old and a pediatric nurse at Boston Children's Hospital, had finally achieved something I'd dreamed about since I was 16. The sleek white sedan with its caramel leather interior represented years of double shifts, careful budgeting, and saying no to vacations and expensive dinners. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in the suburbs of Boston, our family wasn't poor, but we weren't wealthy either. My father Tom worked as an insurance adjuster, and my mother Diana taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. We lived comfortably, but luxuries were rare and had to be earned. At least, that was the rule for me. For my younger sister Ashley, things always seemed to come more easily. Ashley was born when I was 4 years old, and from the beginning she was the golden child. Beautiful and outgoing, she excelled at sports and making friends. I was more reserved, preferring books and science projects to social gatherings. As we grew up, I noticed how my parents' faces would light up when Ashley entered a room, how they'd rush to attend her soccer games, but frequently missed my academic award ceremonies because they conflicted with Ashley's schedule. I started working at 16, babysitting first, then waitressing through high school. My parents contributed what they could to my college fund, but it was clear from the beginning that I would need to finance most of my education myself. I took out loans, applied for every scholarship available, and worked part-time throughout nursing school. Meanwhile, Ashley received a generous allowance well into her college years, despite her mediocre grades and tendency to switch majors every semester. When she decided to drop out after 3 years to find herself, my parents supported her decision and continued to subsidize her lifestyle. I didn't resent my sister for her charm or my parents for their favoritism. I just put my head down and worked harder. By 25, I had paid off my student loans and secured a position as a pediatric nurse, a job I loved with my whole heart. By 26, I had saved enough for a down payment on a small but cozy apartment in Cambridge. And by 28, after a well-deserved promotion to charge nurse, I finally had enough for the car I had coveted since seeing it in a magazine during nursing school. The day I signed the papers at the dealership, I felt a surge of pride so powerful it brought tears to my eyes. This was mine. I had earned every inch of this beautiful machine through my own hard work, determination, and sacrifice. I decided to drive my new car to my parents' house for Sunday dinner to celebrate. They still lived in the same colonial-style house where Ashley and I had grown up, with its slightly crooked mailbox and the oak tree in the front yard that had held our childhood swing. My mother opened the door before I could knock, having heard the purr of the engine as I pulled into the driveway. "Meagan, is that yours?" she asked, eyes wide as she took in the gleaming vehicle. I nodded, unable to keep the smile from spreading across my face. "Just picked it up today." My father emerged from the house, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Well, look at that. Our Meagan's got herself a fancy German car." There was something in his tone, a slight edge that dulled my excitement, but I pushed the feeling aside. This was my moment, and I deserved to enjoy it. Inside, Ashley was lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone. At 24, she was still living at home, supposedly saving money while she looked for a job that aligned with her values. She glanced up as I entered, her eyes widening slightly. "No way. You bought a Beamer?" I nodded, holding up the keys with the distinctive blue and white logo. "That must have cost a fortune," she said, her voice tinged with something that might have been envy or accusation. "I've been saving for a long time," I replied simply. During dinner, I shared details about the car's features, the warranty package, and how long I'd been planning this purchase. My mother made her famous pot roast, and for a while, everything felt warm and celebratory. Then came the moment that would change everything. "You know," my father said, refilling his wine glass, "Ashley has that big interview at the marketing firm next week. Wouldn't it make a great impression if she pulled up in that nice new car of yours?" I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. "What?" "Just for the interview," my mother quickly added. "It would help her make such a good first impression. You know how important first impressions are in the business world." "I've been trying to get my foot in the door at Patterson and Meeks for months," Ashley said, leaning forward eagerly. "Their clients are all high-end. Image matters." I set my fork down carefully. "I just got the car today. I haven't even had it for a full day yet." "It's just for a few hours," my father insisted. "Ashley's been working really hard to land this interview." I looked around the table, at the expectant faces of my family, and felt a familiar sinking in my stomach. Once again, my achievement was being reframed as a family resource, something to be shared, with Ashley's needs taking priority, as always. "We'll see," I said non-committally, but I already knew what would happen. The pattern was too deeply established to break. In my family's eyes, anything I had was automatically available for Ashley to use, regardless of how hard I'd worked to attain it. That night, driving home in my beautiful new car, I realized that nothing had changed since childhood. My belongings would never be truly mine as long as my family had access to them. The knowledge settled heavy in my chest, a familiar weight of disappointment mingled with a new emotion I couldn't quite name yet. It wasn't until I was safely back in my apartment, keys clutched protectively in my hand, that I recognized what I was feeling. Resolve. Something had shifted inside me. This time would be different. This time, I would protect what was mine. The pattern began when we were children. I was 8, and Ashley was 4. Our grandmother had sent me a beautiful porcelain doll for my birthday, with real glass eyes and a hand-sewn dress. I treasured that doll, keeping it displayed on a special shelf in my room rather than playing with it. One afternoon, I came home from school to find Ashley in my room, the doll's arm broken off and her dress stained with marker. "What happened?" I asked, horrified. "She wanted to play tea party," Ashley said with a shrug. When I told our parents, my mother sighed. "She's just a little girl, Meagan. She doesn't understand that some toys aren't for playing with." "You should have put it somewhere she couldn't reach it," my father added, as if the fault lay with me for not anticipating and preventing my sister's actions. No apology was demanded from Ashley. No consequences were imposed. The broken doll was simply the price of being the older sister. This scene repeated itself countless times throughout our childhood. My diary read and shared with friends. My science project accidentally knocked over the night before it was due. My favorite sweater borrowed without permission and returned with a stain. Each time, the response was the same. Ashley was younger. She didn't mean it. I should be more understanding, more generous, more willing to share. By high school, I had learned to hide anything I valued when I wasn't home. But even then, invasion of my privacy and disrespect for my belongings continued. For my high school graduation, my parents gave me a laptop for college. It was the most expensive gift they had ever given me, and I was genuinely touched by their generosity. 3 weeks later, I came home from my summer job to find Ashley using it to edit videos for her social media accounts. "What are you doing with my laptop?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "Mom said I could borrow it," she replied without looking up. "Mine is too slow for video editing." When I confronted my mother, she seemed surprised by my anger. "It's just for a few hours, Meagan. You weren't even using it." 2 days later, I discovered the laptop had a cracked corner and several keys that stuck when pressed. Ashley claimed it was already like that when she used it. During college, I came home for Thanksgiving to discover half of my textbooks missing. Ashley had sold them online, claiming she thought I was done with them since the semester was almost over. I had to rebuy them for finals, stretching my already tight budget to the breaking point. When I moved into my first apartment after nursing school, I gave my parents and Ashley a spare key for emergencies. 6 months later, I came home from a night shift to find empty beer bottles, cigarette butts, and pizza boxes strewn across my living room. Ashley had loaned my apartment to some friends who needed a place for a party while I was working. The list went on and on, a litany of small betrayals and violations that individually might seem petty but collectively formed a pattern of disrespect that had shaped our relationship for decades. Now, sitting in my apartment a week after buying my new BMW, I couldn't shake the feeling that history was about to repeat itself. True to form, Ashley had already borrowed my car twice while I was working night shifts at the hospital. The first time, I only noticed because the gas tank was nearly empty when I'd left it full. The second time, she returned it with mysterious stains on the passenger seat and an empty fast food bag in the back. When confronted, she'd rolled her eyes. "It's not a big deal, Meagan. I needed to run some errands, and my car is such a beater. Besides, what's the point of having a nice car if you're just going to leave it sitting in the parking garage while you work?" The entitlement in her voice made my blood boil, but I'd swallowed my anger. 24 years of conditioning had taught me that expressing my feelings would only label me as selfish and ungenerous in my family's eyes. What bothered me almost as much as Ashley's actions was learning from my mother's friend Carol that my parents had been telling people they had helped me buy the BMW. I'd run into Carol at the grocery store, and she'd immediately mentioned how generous my parents were to contribute to such an expensive purchase. "They must be so proud of you," Carol had said, smiling warmly. "Your mother told me they put in quite a bit toward the down payment. It's wonderful when families can support each other that way." I had been too stunned to correct her, nodding vaguely before escaping to another aisle. The lie stung more than I wanted to admit. Not only had my parents contributed nothing to my car, but they were now taking partial credit for my achievement, while simultaneously treating my property as a shared family resource. That evening, I called my best friend Julia. We'd met during nursing school and had remained close even after she switched careers to become a paralegal. "They're doing it again," I said as soon as she answered. "Ashley's already taken my car twice without really asking, and my parents are telling people they helped me buy it." Julia sighed. "I wish I could say I'm surprised. I don't know what to do. If I confront them, I'm the bad guy. If I say no to Ashley borrowing it for her interview, I'm selfish and unsupportive. You know what this reminds me of?" Julia said after a pause. "My brother Trevor had a client with a similar situation. His family kept taking advantage of him financially, borrowing money and never repaying it, using his credit cards, that sort of thing. What did he do? Trevor helped him set up some legal protections. Nothing drastic, just some boundaries that had teeth, you know? Maybe you should talk to Trevor about your situation." Trevor was a few years older than Julia and me, a corporate attorney who specialized in estate planning and asset protection. I'd met him a few times at Julia's gatherings, and he'd always struck me as sharp and practical. "Do you think he'd be willing to talk to me? This seems pretty minor compared to his usual clients." "Are you kidding? He loves this kind of stuff. It's like a puzzle to him. Give him a call. Tell him I sent you." After hanging up, I sat in my apartment, looking out the window at my BMW parked in its designated spot. The sight of it still filled me with pride, but now that feeling was tinged with anxiety. How many more times would Ashley borrow it without permission? Would my parents continue to volunteer my car for her use without consulting me? How long before something happened to it, just like every other precious thing I'd owned throughout my life? For the first time, I allowed myself to acknowledge a painful truth. My family did not respect my boundaries because I had never truly enforced them. Asking politely, expressing hurt feelings, even direct confrontation had never worked because there were no real consequences for ignoring my wishes. That needed to change. The next morning, I called Trevor's office and scheduled a consultation. Trevor's office was in a renovated brownstone in downtown Boston, its interior a blend of historical architecture and modern furnishings. His assistant showed me to a conference room where Trevor was already waiting, dressed in a crisp navy suit that contrasted with his relaxed smile. "Meagan, good to see you again," he said, shaking my hand. Julia mentioned you're having some family property issues? Over the next hour, I explained the situation with my BMW and the long history of boundary violations that had led to my current predicament. Trevor listened attentively, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. So basically, I want to protect my car from being used without my permission, especially by my sister who has a history of damaging my things, I concluded. Is that even possible? Trevor leaned back in his chair. It's absolutely possible. In fact, this kind of situation is more common than you might think. Really? Family financial entanglement is one of the most common issues I deal with. People feel obligated to share resources with family members, even when those family members have proven themselves to be irresponsible or entitled. He shuffled through some papers on the table. Before we discuss specific strategies, can I share something with you? Julia might have told you that I specialize in estate planning, but what got me interested in that field was my own experience with family and finances. I nodded, curious. My parents divorced when I was in high school, Trevor continued. My father remarried a woman with 2 children about my age. Suddenly, I was expected to share everything from my college fund to my car with my new step-siblings. When I objected, I was labeled selfish and uncooperative. That sounds familiar, I said quietly. By the time I started law school, my stepsister had totaled my car, my stepbrother had maxed out a credit card in my name, and my father had borrowed most of my savings to renovate their house. All with the expectation that I should be okay with it because we're family. What did you do? I learned everything I could about asset protection and financial boundaries. I set up legal structures to protect what was mine, and I stopped feeling guilty about it. He smiled ruefully. Our relationship actually improved once I established those boundaries. They respected me more, though it took some time. His story resonated deeply with me. For years, I'd felt alone in my frustration, as if I was the unreasonable one for wanting to maintain ownership of my possessions. So what options do I have for my car? I asked, feeling a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. Several, actually. One approach would be to create a limited liability company, or LLC, and transfer ownership of the vehicle to that entity. I would give my car to a company, not just any company. Your company. You would be the sole owner and manager of the LLC. The car would technically belong to the business, but you would have complete control over it. Would that actually stop my sister from using it? It creates a legal barrier, Trevor explained. Right now, if your sister takes your car without permission, it's a family dispute. If she takes a car belonging to an LLC without authorization from the manager of that LLC, it's a more serious matter with potential legal consequences. That seems extreme, I said hesitantly. It's not about taking legal action against your family, Trevor clarified. It's about creating a structure that gives your no some weight. Plus, there are potential tax benefits if you use the vehicle for any kind of business purpose. I do sometimes drive to medical conferences and training sessions, I admitted. I've been thinking about starting a small side business doing medical training consultations. Perfect, Trevor said. We could set up an LLC for your consulting business and transfer the BMW to that entity. It provides protection and potential tax advantages, and it creates a clear separation between your personal and business assets. Over the next 2 hours, Trevor walked me through the process of creating an LLC, transferring vehicle ownership, and updating insurance coverage. By the time I left his office, I had a clear plan and a folder full of documents to review. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, reading through everything Trevor had prepared. The legal language was dense in places, but the concept was simple. I would create a barrier between my personal assets and my family's expectations. Part of me felt guilty for taking such a step. After all, these were my parents and my sister, not strangers trying to steal from me. But another part of me, the part that had endured decades of having my boundaries ignored, felt an overwhelming sense of relief. For once, I was taking concrete action to protect myself, rather than just hoping my family would finally respect my wishes. The guilt I felt was the result of years of conditioning to put Ashley's desires ahead of my own needs, to view any act of self-protection as selfish and ungenerous. I thought of Trevor's story and how establishing boundaries had ultimately improved his relationship with his family. Perhaps this could be the beginning of a healthier dynamic for us as well, one based on mutual respect rather than one-sided accommodation. The next morning, I submitted the LLC formation paperwork online and contacted my insurance company to update my policy once the transfer was complete. I named my new business Parker Medical Consulting, LLC, and felt a small thrill at seeing it officially registered. A week later, with all the paperwork finalized and the title transferred, I was legally no longer the owner of my BMW. Parker Medical Consulting, LLC, was the owner, and I was the sole manager authorized to determine who could use the company vehicle. I kept the arrangement to myself, not mentioning it to my parents or Ashley. The car looked the same. I still drove it every day, and from the outside, nothing had changed. But I felt different, more confident and secure, in the knowledge that I had taken concrete steps to protect my investment. My newfound sense of security was tested sooner than I expected. One Thursday evening, as I was preparing for a night shift at the hospital, my phone rang. It was Ashley. "Meagan, I need a huge favor," she said, her voice brimming with excitement. "Patterson and Meeks called me back for a second interview tomorrow morning. It's with the senior partners this time." "That's great," I said cautiously. "The thing is, I need to make a really good impression. These guys are super image conscious. Could I possibly borrow your BMW for the interview? Just for a few hours in the morning?" I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse outright, to finally stand firm against the pattern of entitlement. But another part of me recognized that this was genuinely important to Ashley's career. If she got this job, it could be the first step toward true financial independence. "Just for the interview?" I asked. "Directly there and back?" "Absolutely," she promised. "I know how much that car means to you. I'll be super careful with it, I swear." Against my better judgment, but with the knowledge that my car was now legally protected, I agreed. "Okay, but only for the interview, Ashley. No side trips, no joyriding with friends. And I need it back by noon because I have plans." "You're the best sister ever. I'll pick up the keys in the morning." As I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions. Concern that I was falling back into the same pattern, relief that at least now I had some legal protection if things went wrong, and hope that, maybe this time, Ashley would respect my conditions. That hope, like so many before it, would prove to be misplaced. The next morning, I handed Ashley the keys to my BMW with a list of conditions. "Straight to the interview and back," I reminded her. "No detours, no extra passengers, and I need it back by noon." I know," she said, rolling her eyes as she snatched the keys. "You've only told me 5 times. It's just a car, Meagan. I'll be careful with your precious baby." Something about her dismissive tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. This was an important day for Ashley, and I wanted to support her success even while protecting myself. As Ashley drove away, I realized I had no way of knowing if she would actually follow my rules. On impulse, I pulled out my phone and ordered a rideshare to take me to Patterson and Meeks, the marketing firm where Ashley claimed to have an interview. I wasn't proud of my suspicion, but years of experience had taught me to be cautious. If Ashley really was going straight to her interview, I would see her arrive and then return home without her ever knowing I had checked up on her. The rideshare dropped me off a block from the gleaming glass building that housed Patterson and Meeks. I positioned myself in a coffee shop across the street, with a clear view of the main entrance and the visitor parking area. 9 o'clock came and went. 9:15. 9:30. There was no sign of my white BMW or my sister. At 9:45, I called Ashley's phone. It went straight to voicemail. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Either Ashley was running incredibly late for her interview, or there was no interview at all. Given our history, I suspected the latter. I ordered another coffee and opened the rideshare app on my phone. On a hunch, I requested a ride to Galleria Mall, one of Ashley's favorite shopping destinations. 20 minutes later, as my driver circled the mall's massive parking structure, I spotted my BMW parked haphazardly across 2 spaces near the main entrance. "Can you let me out here?" I asked the driver, pointing to a nearby drop-off area. Inside the mall, I searched the usual spots where Ashley liked to shop. I was about to give up when I spotted her through the window of an upscale electronics store, surrounded by 3 friends I recognized from her social media posts. They were laughing and taking selfies with high-end smartphones, clearly in no hurry. I was debating whether to confront her immediately or wait until she returned the car when my phone buzzed with a text message from my mother. "Ashley says the interview went well. We're so proud of her. When will you be picking up your car?" The lie confirmed what I had already suspected. There was no interview. Ashley had borrowed my car under false pretenses to go shopping with her friends. Rather than causing a scene in the mall, I decided to follow Ashley and her friends from a distance. After about an hour of shopping, they headed back to the parking garage, shopping bags in hand. I watched from behind a concrete pillar as Ashley unlocked my BMW with a flourish, showing it off to her friends who responded with appropriate admiration. They piled into the car, music blasting, as Ashley slid into the driver's seat. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Distracted by her friends and trying to take a selfie with the BMW's distinctive steering wheel logo in the background, Ashley put the car in reverse without looking. The crunch of metal on concrete echoed through the parking garage as the rear bumper collided with a pillar. I gasped involuntarily, stepping out from my hiding place. The damage was immediately visible. The rear bumper was crushed on one side, the taillight shattered, and a long scratch ran along the quarter panel. Ashley and her friends tumbled out of the car, but instead of looking dismayed, they were laughing. "Oh my God, Ashley, you're such a bad driver," one of her friends said between giggles. "Whatever, it's just a little scratch," Ashley replied, examining the damage with a shrug. "It's not that bad. Isn't your sister going to freak out?" another friend asked, still laughing. "Meagan? She's way too uptight about this car. It's just a material possession. She'll probably be glad it's not perfect anymore so she can stop obsessing over it." The casual dismissal of both the damage to my car and my feelings hit me like a physical blow. This was the same pattern that had played out since childhood, but seeing it so blatantly displayed, hearing Ashley mock my values to her friends, something shifted inside me. "It's pretty bad, actually," I said, stepping forward. Ashley whirled around, her face draining of color. "Meagan, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, my voice steady despite the anger coursing through me. "This doesn't look like a job interview." Ashley's friends exchanged uncomfortable glances, suddenly finding the concrete floor fascinating. "The interview finished early," Ashley stammered. "I had some time to kill before bringing the car back to you." "Don't lie to me," I said quietly. "There was no interview. You lied to borrow my car so you could show off to your friends." "It's not a big deal," Ashley protested, her voice taking on the wheedling tone she always used with our parents. "I was going to tell you about the accident. These things happen. These things happen when you're being careless and irresponsible," I corrected her. "When you're taking selfies instead of watching where you're going. When you're more concerned with impressing your friends than respecting someone else's property." Ashley's expression hardened. "You're being ridiculous. It's just a car, Meagan. Why do you always have to be so materialistic?" "This isn't about materialism," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "This is about respect. Respect for my property. Respect for my boundaries. Respect for me as a person." Ashley rolled her eyes dramatically. "Here we go with the boundaries speech again. You know what your problem is? You never learned how to share. Family helps family, Meagan. That's what Mom and Dad always say. Family doesn't lie to family," I countered. "Family doesn't damage someone's property and laugh about it. Family doesn't mock someone's values behind their back." Ashley's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then looked back at me with a triumphant expression. Whatever. Mom and Dad are on their way. We'll see what they have to say about your little freakout. You called our parents? I asked incredulously. Of course I did. Someone needs to talk some sense into you. I stared at my sister, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. The pretty face that had always gotten her what she wanted. The confident smirk that came from knowing our parents would take her side. The complete lack of accountability for her actions. You know what? Good, I said finally. I think it's time we all had an honest conversation. While we waited for our parents to arrive, Ashley's friends made awkward excuses and melted away, leaving us standing in uncomfortable silence beside my damaged BMW. I used the time to take photos of the damage from multiple angles, ignoring Ashley's eye-rolling and dramatic sighs. When our parents pulled into the parking garage 20 minutes later, I was ready for the familiar pattern. Ashley would play the victim, my parents would minimize her actions, and I would be cast as unreasonable and selfish for being upset. Not this time. My parents hurried across the parking garage, concern etched on their faces, but their concern wasn't for me or my damaged property. It was, as always, for Ashley. What happened, sweetheart? My mother asked, wrapping an arm around Ashley's shoulders. Are you okay? I'm fine, Ashley said, her voice suddenly small and tremulous. It was just an accident. I barely bumped a pillar, but Meagan's acting like I totaled her car. My father circled the BMW, inspecting the damage with a critical eye. It's not so bad, he declared. Probably just needs a new bumper and some paint. Insurance should cover most of it. That's not the point, I said, struggling to keep my voice level. Ashley lied to me. There was no job interview. She borrowed my car under false pretenses to go shopping with her friends. Well, my mother hedged. Maybe she was nervous about telling you the real reason. You have been rather possessive about this car, Meagan. I stared at her in disbelief. Possessive? It's my car. I paid for it. I have every right to decide who drives it and when. Of course you do, honey, my father said, placatingly. But family helps family. Ashley was just trying to impress her friends. No real harm done. No harm? He echoed. Look at my car. It's just a material possession, my mother said, repeating Ashley's earlier dismissal. Insurance will fix it, and everything will be fine. Except my insurance rates will go up because Ashley was driving, I pointed out. And there's a $1,000 deductible that someone needs to pay. An uncomfortable silence fell over our group. Ashley looked down at her shoes, while my parents exchanged glances. Well, my father said, finally, these things happen. Maybe we can help with some of the deductible. Split it 3 ways between all of us. Why should I pay any of the deductible? I asked, genuinely confused. I wasn't driving. I wasn't even here. Don't be selfish, Meagan, my mother chided. Ashley made a mistake, but she doesn't have much savings right now. We're on a fixed income. We all need to pitch in. Like you pitched in to help me buy this car? I asked, my patience finally snapping. The car you've been telling everyone you helped me purchase? My mother had the grace to look embarrassed. I never said we paid for all of it. You didn't pay for any of it, I corrected her. Not 1 penny. I saved for years. I worked overtime shifts. I skipped vacations and dinners out and new clothes. I earned this car. And within 2 weeks, Ashley has damaged it because you all believe everything I own is community property. That's not fair, my father protested. We've always supported you. Emotionally, maybe, I acknowledged. But financially? I've been on my own since I was 16. Ashley drops out of college, and you keep paying her rent. I buy myself a nice car after years of hard work, and suddenly I'm flaunting my wealth and need to share. We've always been proud of how independent you are, my mother said defensively. But that doesn't mean you should forget where you came from. Family supports each other. Support goes both ways, I pointed out. When was the last time Ashley supported me? When was the last time either of you stood up for my right to my own possessions? It's always been the Meagan gives. Ashley takes dynamic in this family. Ashley, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke up. "That's not true. I've always been there for you emotionally." I turned to face my sister. "How? By mocking me to your friends? By calling me uptight and materialistic because I expect you to respect my property?" "I was just joking around," she muttered. "It wasn't funny," I replied. "None of this is funny. Not the damage to my car, not the lies about the interview, not the fact that you all expect me to just accept this as normal family behavior." My father ran a hand through his thinning hair, his expression a mix of frustration and confusion. "What exactly do you want, Meagan? An apology? Fine, we're all sorry. But accidents happen, and we need to move forward as a family. What I want is for Ashley to take responsibility for her actions," I said firmly. "I want her to pay for the damage she caused. I want all of you to respect my boundaries and my property." "Of course we respect you," my mother insisted. "But you have to admit, you've been different since you bought this car. More distant, more concerned with things than people." "That's not fair," I said, hurt by the accusation. "I've always been there for this family. I visit every week. I help out whenever you need it. But the one time I do something nice for myself, I'm suddenly selfish?" "No one's calling you selfish," my father said quickly. "Actually, you all have, in various ways," I pointed out, "for wanting my own things as a child, for expecting Ashley to ask before using my possessions, for being upset when my things were damaged or destroyed, and now for expecting Ashley to take responsibility for damaging my car." A tense silence fell over our group. My parents looked uncomfortable, while Ashley's expression had shifted from contrition to resentment. "Fine," she said finally. "I'll pay for the damage. Happy now?" "With what money?" my father asked, concern creeping into his voice. "You're between jobs right now." "Actually," my mother said hesitantly, "we were thinking Ashley could use Meagan's car for her job search. Just temporarily, until she gets back on her feet. It would make such a good impression at interviews. The real ones," she added hastily, seeing my expression darken. "You want to give Ashley regular access to my car after she just damaged it?" I asked incredulously. "After she lied about why she needed to borrow it?" "It was one mistake," my father said dismissively. "And like I said, the damage isn't that bad. She needs to make a good impression to get a good job," my mother added. "Your old Toyota was fine for getting to nursing school, and Ashley's old car is fine for running errands, but for high-end marketing jobs, image matters." I stared at my parents, the full weight of their entitlement finally hitting me. It wasn't just that they expected me to share my car with Ashley. They genuinely believed I owed it to her, that my success obligated me to prop up my sister's facade of success. "No," I said simply. "No what?" my father asked, clearly not expecting direct refusal. "No, Ashley cannot use my car for job interviews or anything else. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever again." "Meagan," my mother began, her tone placating, "I know you're upset right now, but this is about family supporting each other." "Family supports each other through encouragement and respect," I replied. "Not by taking without asking, lying about reasons, damaging property, and then expecting no consequences." "You've always been so selfish," Ashley burst out, her facade of contrition completely gone now. "Always keeping score, always counting what's yours versus what's mine. That's why you don't have many friends, you know. No one likes someone who's that possessive and uptight." The verbal attack stung, but I refused to be derailed. "This isn't about my personality, Ashley. This is about your actions today and the pattern they represent." "Pattern? What pattern?" my father asked, defensive now. "You're making this into some big conspiracy when it's just a simple accident. The pattern of Ashley taking my things without permission, damaging them, and facing no consequences," I explained patiently. "The pattern of you both enabling her behavior and expecting me to just accept it as normal. We never raised you to be this materialistic," my mother said, disappointment heavy in her voice. "It's just a car, Meagan. It's not just a car, I replied. It's the principle. It's about respect and boundaries and taking responsibility for your actions. It's about the fact that after 28 years, none of you see anything wrong with what happened today. Of course we see that Ashley made a mistake, my father said, clearly frustrated. But you're blowing it out of proportion. These things happen in families. You share, you forgive, you move on. Sharing is voluntary, I pointed out. Taking without permission isn't sharing, it's taking. So what are you going to do? Ashley challenged, her voice taking on a hard edge. Sue me? Call the police? Cut us all off because of a little car accident? Actually, I said calmly, I'm going to tell you something I probably should have mentioned earlier. I took a deep breath, knowing that what I was about to say would change our family dynamic forever. This isn't my car anymore. My family stared at me in confusion. What do you mean it's not your car? My father asked. You just bought it 2 weeks ago. I did buy it, I confirmed. And then I transferred ownership to my LLC, Parker Medical Consulting. I'm starting a medical training business as a side project. You put your car in a company name? My mother asked, looking bewildered. Why would you do that? For several reasons, I explained. Tax advantages, liability protection, and separation of business and personal assets. Ashley's eyes narrowed suspiciously. When did you do this? Last week, I said. After I discovered you had taken the car without permission twice while I was working night shifts. You knew about that? She asked, having the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Of course I knew. You left fast food wrappers in the back seat and returned it with less gas than I left it with. So what does this company ownership thing actually mean? My father asked, his tone suggesting he suspected some kind of trick. It means, I explained carefully, that the car is owned by Parker Medical Consulting, LLC. I am the sole manager of that LLC, which means I'm the only person authorized to drive it, or to designate other drivers. That's just a technicality, my mother dismissed. It's still your car. Actually, it's not. And that's an important distinction because Ashley was driving a company vehicle without authorization from the company manager. That creates some legal complications. Legal complications? My father repeated, his voice rising. What are you talking about? I'm talking about insurance, I said calmly. My personal auto insurance won't cover this accident because the car is owned by the LLC. The LLC's insurance policy only covers authorized drivers, which Ashley was not. So who's going to pay for the repairs? My mother asked, a note of panic entering her voice. Well, since Ashley was driving without authorization, she's personally liable for the damages, I explained. Or her insurance would be, if she had been listed on any policy covering this vehicle, which she wasn't. This is ridiculous, Ashley sputtered. You're trying to scare us with legal mumbo-jumbo because you're mad about a little fender bender. I'm not trying to scare anyone, I said evenly. I'm explaining the legal reality of the situation. The car is owned by an LLC. You were not authorized to drive it. You damaged it while using it without permission. These facts have consequences. What kind of consequences? My father asked, his earlier dismissiveness giving way to concern. If we handle this privately, Ashley needs to pay for all repairs out of pocket, I said. If we go through official channels, there could be more serious issues, including potential charges for unauthorized use of a vehicle. Charges? My mother gasped. You would press charges against your own sister? I'm not saying I would, I clarified. I'm explaining what could happen if we treated this like the legal issue it technically is, rather than a family matter. I can't believe you would even consider that, my father said, anger coloring his voice. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. The question hung in the air, unanswered. This isn't about who did what for whom, my mother finally said. This is about family loyalty. Loyalty goes both ways, I pointed out. Where was the loyalty when Ashley lied about needing the car for an interview? Where was the loyalty when she damaged it and laughed it off with her friends? Where is the loyalty now, when instead of holding her accountable, you're trying to make me the villain for protecting my own interests? You tricked us, Ashley accused. You knew I would end up driving your car again, so you set this whole thing up to trap me. I didn't trick anyone, I corrected her. I took steps to protect my property based on past experience. The fact that history repeated itself so quickly just proves I was right to be cautious. So what happens now? My father asked, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Now we have a choice, I said. We can handle this like adults, with Ashley taking responsibility for her actions and paying for the damages. Or we can let this escalate into a legal matter, which I don't think any of us wants. I don't have that kind of money, Ashley protested. You know that. Actually, I don't know that, I replied. You've been living rent-free with Mom and Dad for years. You don't have student loans because they paid for your education. You've had plenty of time to build savings. Ashley looked away, refusing to meet my eyes. Fine, she said finally. How much is it going to cost? I won't know until I get estimates from a repair shop, I said. But based on what I can see, probably between $3,000 and $5,000. $5,000? Ashley repeated incredulously. For a little dent and a broken light? Luxury cars have expensive parts, I said simply. And that little dent damaged the rear quarter panel, which needs to be replaced, not just repaired. I can't believe you're doing this, my mother said, disappointment heavy in her voice. Your own sister. I'm not doing anything except holding Ashley accountable for her actions, I replied, something that should have happened long ago. If you go through with this, it's going to change things in this family, my father warned. You understand that, don't you? Things already needed to change, I said firmly. This just forces us to acknowledge it. An uncomfortable silence fell over our group. Ashley was staring at the ground, my mother was blinking back tears, and my father's face was flushed with anger. I need to get back to work, I said finally, checking my watch. I'll take the car to a repair shop tomorrow and get some estimates. Then we can discuss payment arrangements. Payment arrangements? My father repeated bitterly. Like she's some stranger off the street. Not your own sister. Family status doesn't erase responsibility, I said, meeting his gaze steadily. If anything, it should heighten it. As I turned to inspect the damage to my car once more, Ashley's phone rang. She stepped away to take the call, speaking in hushed tones. When she returned, her face was pale. That was Jen from Human Resources at Patterson and Meeks, she said, avoiding everyone's eyes. They're calling references for the marketing coordinator position. But I thought you had an interview with them today, my mother said, confusion evident in her voice. That's what she told us, I confirmed. That's why she borrowed my car, remember? For the interview? Ashley shifted uncomfortably. I might have exaggerated a little. Exaggerated how? My father asked. I applied for the job online, Ashley admitted. I had a phone screening last week. They said they'd call references before deciding on in-person interviews. So there was no interview today at all, my mother clarified, a note of disappointment entering her voice for the first time. You lied to all of us. I needed a nice car to go shopping with Tara and Madison, Ashley explained defensively. They both got new jobs at tech startups, and they're always showing off their company perks and fancy office views on Instagram. I couldn't show up in my old Honda with the dented fender. So you lied about a job interview to borrow my car to impress your friends, I summarized. And then you damaged it taking selfies in a parking garage. Put so bluntly, even Ashley couldn't spin the situation in her favor. She looked down at her designer boots, purchased with our parents' credit card. I was going to tell you guys about the mix-up with the interview, she mumbled. I just wanted to look successful in front of my friends for once. For once? I repeated incredulously. Ashley, you've been presenting an image of success on social media for years while living at home and bouncing between entry-level jobs. That's the opposite of success. That's pretending. Meagan, my mother warned, but with less conviction than before. No, I'm tired of tiptoeing around the truth, I continued. Ashley's been fired from 3 jobs in the past 2 years. Did either of you know that? My parents exchanged startled glances. She told us she left Brighton Marketing because the hours were too demanding, my father said slowly, and that she quit the position at Crawford Agency because there was no room for advancement. I was let go from Brighton for consistently missing deadlines, Ashley admitted reluctantly. And Crawford fired me after I used the company credit card for personal expenses. The third one was just a temporary position that ended, though, she added quickly. Why didn't you tell us? My mother asked, hurt evident in her voice. Because I didn't want to disappoint you, Ashley burst out. You're always bragging about Meagan, the perfect nurse with her perfect apartment and her perfect BMW. How was I supposed to compete with that? It's not a competition, I said, genuinely surprised by the revelation. I had no idea you felt that way. Of course you didn't, Ashley said bitterly. You've always been so focused on your own achievements, your precious boundaries, your perfect life. You never noticed that I was struggling to find my place. We noticed, my father said quietly. We just thought. We thought you were taking your time figuring things out. For 4 years? Ashley asked with a hollow laugh. No one takes that long unless they're failing, which I am, spectacularly. I looked at my sister with new eyes. Behind the confident facade, the designer clothes, and the carefully curated social media presence was someone deeply insecure, someone who had never learned the connection between effort and achievement because everything had always been handed to her. You're not failing, I said carefully. You're just stuck in patterns that aren't serving you well. What's that supposed to mean? Ashley asked defensively. It means, I continued, choosing my words carefully, that you've never had to face consequences for your actions. You've never had to work hard for what you want. You've never had to build something from nothing. Not everyone wants to work 80 hours a week like you do, Ashley shot back. It's not about the hours, I explained. It's about the satisfaction of earning something through your own efforts, of knowing that what you have is truly yours because you worked for it. Ashley fell silent, and for the first time, I sensed she might actually be listening. I think, my father said slowly, we might all need some time to process what's happened today. There have been a lot of revelations. Agreed, I said, reaching for my phone. I'm going to call a tow truck for the car and get a rideshare back to work. We can talk about next steps tomorrow when everyone's had a chance to cool down. I'll pay for the damages, Ashley said suddenly, her voice small but resolute. All of it, whatever it costs. Ashley, we'll help you, my mother began automatically. No, Ashley interrupted, holding up a hand. I did this. I lied. I damaged the car. I need to take responsibility. It was the first time I could remember my sister ever saying those words, and despite everything that had happened, I felt a glimmer of hope. Thank you, I said simply. That's a good start. As I walked away to make my calls, I heard my mother asking Ashley about the other jobs, my father's deeper voice occasionally interjecting with questions. For perhaps the first time, they were having an honest conversation about my sister's reality, rather than the fiction we had all been maintaining. It wasn't the resolution I had expected when I woke up that morning, but it was, perhaps, the beginning of something more authentic for all of us. 3 months passed, bringing changes I could never have anticipated on that fateful day in the mall parking garage. My BMW was fully repaired, the gleaming white paint and pristine bumper showing no signs of the collision. True to her word, Ashley had paid for all the repairs, setting up a payment plan with the body shop and making each installment on time. The money, it turned out, was the least significant outcome of our confrontation. The real transformation had been in our family dynamic. My parents, shaken by the revelations about Ashley's employment history and her habitual lying, had finally recognized their role in enabling her behavior. They had insisted she see a career counselor who helped her identify genuine interests and skills rather than pursuing jobs based solely on their perceived prestige or social media appeal. To everyone's surprise, including her own, Ashley discovered she had a talent for event coordination. The very social skills that had made her popular in school translated well to organizing and managing corporate functions. She secured an entry-level position with an event planning company, and for the first time in her adult life, she was genuinely excited about her work. My parents had also suggested family therapy, something I had never expected them to consider. In our third session, my mother had broken down in tears, acknowledging that she had always favored Ashley because she saw herself in my sister's social nature and struggled to find direction. Meagan always seemed so self-sufficient, she had explained through tears. I never worried about you because you always figured things out on your own. I didn't realize that made you feel unsupported. My father had admitted that his pride in my achievements had been mingled with a sense of inadequacy. You surpassed us so quickly, he confessed. Sometimes it was easier to focus on Ashley's needs than to acknowledge that you didn't need us anymore. These conversations weren't easy. Decades of established patterns didn't change overnight, but the simple act of acknowledging the unbalanced family dynamic was a crucial first step. As for me, Parker Medical Consulting had grown from a legal fiction created to protect my car into a genuine side business. I was now conducting training sessions for pediatric nurses at 3 hospitals in the Boston area, using my expertise to help others develop their skills. The business was small but growing, and I found satisfaction in building something that was entirely my own creation. Today, I was driving to my parents' house for our now monthly family dinner, a tradition we had established in the aftermath of the mall incident. As I pulled into the driveway, I spotted Ashley's Honda, parked along the curb, recently repaired and sporting a fresh coat of paint. Inside, my mother was putting the finishing touches on dinner while my father and Ashley set the table. The scene was so normal, so domestic, yet fundamentally different from similar gatherings in the past. "Meagan's here," Ashley called out, giving me a genuine smile as I entered. The tension that had always simmered between us had not completely disappeared, but it had transformed into something more like respect. "Just in time," my mother said, carrying a casserole to the table. "I made that chicken dish you like." "It smells amazing," I said, hanging my jacket on the coat rack. Dinner conversation flowed more naturally than it ever had in the past. Ashley talked about an upcoming corporate retreat she was helping to coordinate. My father shared news about his retirement planning. My mother mentioned a new teaching strategy she was implementing in her classroom. When I shared updates about my consulting business, everyone listened attentively, asking questions and offering suggestions. There was no undercurrent of resentment, no subtle implications that my success somehow diminished anyone else's worth. After dinner, as Ashley and I washed dishes side by side, she bumped my shoulder lightly with hers. "I have something for you," she said, drying her hands and retrieving her purse from the living room. She pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. Inside was a check for the final payment on the car repairs, along with a handwritten note. "Meagan, thank you for holding me accountable when no one else would. I'm sorry it took damaging your car for me to recognize how my actions were affecting you and our family. I'm working on becoming someone worthy of your trust again. Love, Ashley." I looked up from the note to find my sister watching me anxiously. "I know it's just money," she said quickly, "and it doesn't make up for everything else. But I wanted you to know I'm serious about changing." "I can see that," I said softly. "Every day." "The weird thing is," Ashley continued, returning to the sink to rinse another plate, "I actually feel better about myself now. When I was pretending to be successful for my friends and social media, I was miserable inside. Now that I'm actually working towards something real, even though it's just an entry-level job, I'm proud of myself." "You should be," I told her. "Building something genuine is always more satisfying than maintaining a facade." "I get why your car meant so much to you now," she admitted. "It wasn't about the car itself. It was about what it represented." "Exactly," I nodded. It was tangible proof of what I could accomplish through my own efforts. "I want that feeling," Ashley said with unexpected vulnerability. I want to earn things instead of just being given them or taking them. You're already on that path, I assured her. The fact that you paid for the repairs yourself, instead of letting Mom and Dad bail you out, shows how much you've grown. Later, as we all gathered in the living room for coffee and dessert, my father cleared his throat. We have something we want to discuss with you girls, he said, exchanging a glance with my mother. Your father and I have been doing some estate planning, my mother explained, making sure our affairs are in order for the future. Are you guys okay? I asked, concerned. We're fine, my father assured me, just being responsible. But the process has made us think about how we've handled family finances over the years. We've decided to make some changes, my mother continued. Ashley, we think it's time for you to find your own apartment. Ashley nodded, surprising me with her lack of protest. I've actually been looking at places near my work. One of my coworkers is looking for a roommate. We'll help with the security deposit, my father said. But after that, the rent will be your responsibility. That's fair, Ashley agreed. And Meagan, my mother turned to me. We want to apologize for not supporting your education the way we should have. We can't change the past, but we've decided to set up a fund to help with your business expansion, if you're interested. That's unexpected, I said, genuinely surprised. But the business is doing well on its own. I think that money would be better used helping Ashley get established independently. Are you sure? My father asked. Positive, I replied. I'm proud of what I've built through my own efforts, and I think Ashley deserves the same opportunity to stand on her own 2 feet. That's very generous, Meagan, my mother said, her eyes suspiciously bright. It's not generosity, I corrected her gently. It's belief in Ashley's potential. There's a difference between supporting someone's growth and enabling their dependence. I think we've all learned that lesson. Ashley wiped away a tear, nodding in agreement. I don't want handouts anymore. I want to build something real, something I've earned. We sat together in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of old patterns finally lifting from our family. I have something to ask, I said eventually. Ashley, would you like to drive my BMW to your big corporate event next week? The one with the tech executives? Ashley's eyes widened. Are you serious? After what happened? I trust you now, I said simply. You've shown me I can. I promise I'll be careful, she said earnestly. No selfies while driving, no joyriding with friends, straight to the event and back. I know you will, I replied. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you, the real you, not the Instagram version. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey our family had taken over the past 3 months. The painful confrontation in the mall parking garage had been a catalyst for change, forcing us all to examine patterns that had persisted for decades. My BMW, now legally back in my name since the LLC had served its purpose, still represented achievement and independence to me. But it had also become a symbol of something equally important: the power of standing up for yourself with conviction and compassion. I had learned that protecting your boundaries isn't selfish. It's an essential act of self-respect that ultimately benefits everyone involved. By refusing to participate in unhealthy family dynamics, I had created space for authentic growth and connection. Ashley had learned that true confidence comes from earning your way, rather than taking shortcuts or creating illusions. My parents had recognized that real love means holding people accountable rather than protecting them from consequences. The road ahead wouldn't be perfect. Old habits would occasionally resurface, requiring patient reinforcement of new boundaries. But for the first time in my life, I felt that my family was seeing me, truly seeing me, and respecting the person I had become. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I noticed a text message from Ashley. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. It means more than you know, I smiled, typing back a simple response. That's what real family does. Have you ever had to stand up to family members to protect your boundaries? What happened when you finally drew a line and held firm? If you enjoyed this story about finding the courage to demand respect and seeing the positive changes that can come from honest confrontation, please like, Subscribe, share, and comment below. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, healthy relationships require both love and boundaries. Until next time, take care of yourself and those you truly love.